and we can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, and as our custom, we'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. And there is no one for public participation, so we'll just continue with our meeting. We have been given the minutes, and they were distributed before the meeting by Susan Donovan, our recording secretary. Are there any comments or questions about the minutes from the last meeting held on
April 16th.
April 16th?
Hearing none, I move they be approved.
I second it.
Excellent. Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, wonderful. Meetings are approved unanimously. So since we are having computer problems, we can see whether we can get the computer started, and if not, why don't we just go into the website revision comments first, and if we can get any more help. Is there going to be anything more that's going to be done with the computer?
I don't think so.
We're done with it. Okay, so do you want to do your
Sure.
report? Okay,
I
so
can-
we'll start with
I can
our,
talk without the,
you could probably
I have-
say it in your sleep, sure.
okay. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes, so we're
Okay.
having sewer construction update by Representative Sandy Tripp from GHD.
Yeah, and if it's okay, I'm taking the opportunity to go through phase 1, phase 1A, and phase 2,
Wonderful.
which is under design, of course. Sorry. So starting with the plant, there's been more of the same this last month. Last month I showed a lot of updates that had happened over the previous month. We'd had a lot of architectural improvements, a lot of piping being installed in the buildings, a lot of work inside of the buildings. More of the same. It slowed down a little bit because they got a big jump on it the month before. They're starting to work on the exterior of the buildings, putting in door stoops and things like that. In the blower room, they're hooking up the air piping to the blowers in the process building. The UV room has progressed. The equipment's in. Nothing's powered up yet because we are missing the MCCs. But things are getting installed. We're beginning to see more equipment. We have some pumps like the ML mixed liquor pumps, the sludge pumps. They're arriving and being installed in the basements. The mechanical room, remember the one with all the copper pipe, it's progressing, more and more equipment being brought in. In the preliminary treatment building, we really didn't have any major work. That was the first building they hit. So everything is hooked up and installed, and it's pretty much waiting. We've also seen some major equipment hit the site, like, for example, the odor control system is not installed, but it's in pieces at the site. On the collection system, beginning to see the spring work. Paving's been going on. They've been installing laterals on Orchard Road. Some miscellaneous pipe work on some of the roads, like Pine Road and Antunes. They were out there doing small sections of gravity sewer. Manhole frames and covers went in on Orchard Road and Quiniquisette, Brewster Road. They've been testing pipe, and they've also started working at the Asher Path Apartments, getting that installed. At the pump stations, we haven't seen the pumps yet, but we did do a change order to include the odor control systems. This is something that wasn't awarded when the projects first bid, but we asked them to add them because the finances are doing well on this project. And they started placing the pads for them, so they're starting to do a little bit of that work. I can't really show you the cash flow. Can I? I will PDF this presentation and send it to the chair and the vice chair so that you can share it. I also give it to Karen. But basically, the treatment plan itself is about, there's 215 days left in the contract. Now, they haven't asked for an extension yet. As we noted, this will probably go out through July due to the supply chain issues that we've had with the MCC. They're 72%, 73% time expended on the project and about 66% spent. They're starting to see an uptick in the spending on that job because we're getting major equipment in, and that's a lot of money. On the collection system, we've had the contract 2, which is the one that they got off to a running start on, and it's been flat. They have a little bit of movement on it, some of the payments going in, but they've also had a small change order issued for work that they had done, so they got paid for that. Same thing with contract 3, a small change order was issued, and they're getting paid for obviously the work they're doing at the pump stations and the small work they're doing. So the spending is flattening out. If you recall, those collection system projects were spent ahead of what the plan was. So they were getting done fast. Okay, any questions on phase 1 at all?
I just have a couple, if you don't mind. I didn't understand what you meant in the collection system about spring work. What does spring work mean?
Well, during the winter, they couldn't pave.
Oh, so spring season
Spring
Yeah.
work.
season, yeah.
Oh, I thought,
Yeah.
I had visions of some sort of spring system that was
pipes
going in.
leaking.
Okay, question
Yeah.
answered.
Yeah, so a lot of the piping, especially the stuff that was put in the fall, we want it in the ground 90 days before we do final pavement. That way, if there's any voids and it settles, we can get it fixed without damaging the final pavement. So they're starting to do some final pavement.
Good to know. And then the other question that I have for you, you mentioned about the odor control systems. Are there odor control systems on the pump stations as well as the wastewater treatment plant?
Yep.
Because that had been a big question from people who were residents who
Sure.
abutted the area.
Yeah.
So that's all the pump stations.
Yes, the two that are being installed now are what we changed order in, and Brewster was, it has an odor control system too.
Fantastic.
one.
That's great to know, and I think people will appreciate knowing
Yeah.
that that's been allocated and that it's being taken care of.
You live near one? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So phase 1A is the alternate rebid project. Last month I noted that we had open bids and that we got very good bids on them. Just to remind you, the low bid was about 4.7 million, and the bids, our estimate was 5.2 million. So came in under our estimate, which is fantastic. And the bid range, the low bids were very tight, which is good. And the range of the bids was 4.7 to 6 million. We have since then received we have requested authorization to award from the funding agency, DEP. We have been given that, and the town has awarded the contract. So right now the contract's documents are in with the firm that won the job was Dig Construction, and they're out of South Dennis.
Can you spell that, please?
DIG, capital IT, Construction, LLC. And they are currently getting their certificates of insurance and their bonds pulled together. They'll execute the contract, and then I'll bring it to you to have for Rodney's signature. Again, so I would expect the construction to start, I had written mid to late May, but it's going to be in June, which is fine. And the duration is 19 months, mainly because of the pump stations. When you start getting electrical equipment, it takes a little while these days. Any questions on the alternate rebid?
So this is just the alternate rebid, this has nothing to do with phase two.
Right, that project, just to remind you, is the Brewster Road subdivision, if you will, with a pump station that serves that grouping. And then I think there were 5 miscellaneous roads, and then one stretch of 10 houses on Meeting House Road that are going to be served by grinder pumps.
So the electrical work that you say is going to stretch this out over 19 months, that's a year and a half.
That's with the pump station.
And that's the pump station at that island on Brewster
Mhm.
Road? And that's going to be basically submerged underground, correct?
The
There'll be a
wet well
smaller
and the
building.
pumps are, yeah, there will be a small building. It looks a lot like the ones that are out there now, except smaller. And that'll be on the island as well, and that's housing the electrical equipment. Or will house the electrical equipment.
Yeah, some of the things we did for that location was we specifically wanted to shrink the size of the house since it's sitting directly in the middle of a residential neighborhood in an intersection. And then we decided not to go with any fencing around it, the chain link fence, just because of the fact it's a neighborhood and it can be an obstructive view for people, and it just won't look neighborhood-like. So we've done that, so we're gonna put more shrubbery up and just have the security be off a security camera instead of having the fence.
There's a lot of landscape. Of course, we're taking out some nice trees, unfortunately, but we're putting back some nice landscaping for you. Another thing that we hadn't talked about, I don't think, in these meetings for phase one is procurement of grinder pumps, which Jared and GHD have been working on over the past few months. Well, actually, I was working with Ray on it back a year ago.
Yeah.
So for phase one, there's about 30, a little more than 30 pumps that need to be procured for for the properties that will be served by low pressure systems. So that should hit the street in the next couple months.
In terms of bid or in terms of receiving them?
In terms of putting it on the street for the firms
Bid.
to bid, yes. And that's not a it's not a services, it's not a construction contract, it's actually procuring equipment. And on phase two, which is under design, right now what you'll see out on the streets are what you saw last time, which is boring contractors with drill rigs. And they've been progressing nicely, but there's quite a few boreholes to be placed in the streets, and that is going to be running probably through the end of June. So try to stay away during the summer season. Surveyors have started hitting the site as well, so you're going to see some survey crews out there being on people's doorsteps so they can get a first floor elevation. They're going to be poppy manhole covers. So we'll get police details for that type of work if they're going to be in the street. And then
Sorry, when do you think the results of the borings will be available? When do you think the results of the borings will be provided?
Can you use your
they tend to
microphone?
come in pretty quickly. The results of the borings,
Yeah,
I don't think we've received any yet, but we usually get them within a couple weeks.
Okay.
In fact, maybe we have. We collect them and then we evaluate the borings,
Evaluate 'em.
but we also, one thing about Cape Cod, the soils are pretty consistent. So we look for anything that's unusual. I'm more concerned with the groundwater levels
yeah.
to see if we're getting into heavy groundwater. This helps us estimate the project, especially at the pump stations. There's 6 pump stations going in, so we want to know if we're going to be battling groundwater or not.
Yeah.
And we're also doing an upgrade, designing the upgrade to the treatment plant. That's progressing very nicely. That's mostly getting some additional equipment so you can open up the second train. So getting MBR units, and I think we're doing 1 new tank and other periphery equipment.
Yeah, I think one of the screeners, that, they'll be knocking out the wall for one of the screeners in the channel.
In the
One of the
channel or
what?
the
In
train?
the preliminary building, I think they're knocking out one of the walls, because they put those temp walls in there for the screeners. So it can be opened up. I think the screener's already
We're
there.
adding any screen, okay.
Yeah, it's already there. I don't think it's they just have to
Mhm.
knock out the wall, which I
Yeah.
thought was pretty ingenious, that they planned well enough that they can just knock it out.
Yeah, and we're also gonna be constructing 4 new sand beds in phase 2. So you're getting 4 going in now, and then there'll be 4 under this design.
Mhm,
So you'll have 8 beds.
mhm.
We're done.
Are you getting excited as you begin to see it come together?
Am I getting
Are
excited?
you getting excited as you begin to see it come together?
Always. Always, yes.
Oh, we're also doing the admin building in phase 2.
Yeah, we're pulling together working with Jared, get him a building that he would like, and also saying, well, I think you want this too. And we can be presenting that type of thing. If you're interested, we can show you those types of
Mhm.
things.
Where is the building? It's going to be on the site, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just an office area that's going to be converted into the building that's being built?
Nope.
No, it's a separate building.
It's a separate building. It'll have office space for us to do billing and working with customers, and then a conference room slash break room slash just a bigger room that you guys can hold your meetings at, or we can have other types of meetings there. Has bathrooms and locker rooms and a lab
Laboratory.
and a big lab.
Will the access be off Asher's Path or?
It looks like it's gonna be off of, it hasn't been decided yet, but the access road that they're using right now to bring in the utilities across from
Carlton.
yeah, Carlton, and come in that way.
Carlton.
And then, it'll be more like you'd come in, right to your left would be the parking lot in the building, and then there'll be a fence line preventing anybody from going into the
Cool,
actual area of work,
Excellent,
great,
so.
fantastic.
wonderful. Well done, thank you.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is the website revision update. Has there been any more movement
You
on
haven't
that?
had any?
We haven't had anything.
Did have a comment from Chatham.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was Chatham that
Uh-huh.
called. They were going over our website, and they were very impressed by our website, and
Cool.
they loved the information. It was pretty funny. It was just the day after you guys had all met together and done that, and I got a
Uh-huh.
phone. Hey, I was just on your website. It's a great website. And I'm like, oh,
Whoa.
wow, thank you.
That's good to
I
know.
was
That's
like,
very
that was
good to
fast
know.
turnaround.
No,
So-
no, when I was starting to do this, I was looking at everybody else's website too, so
Exactly.
people do that.
Yeah, it seems like the new changes are very
Yeah.
positive, and
The only question that has come out of that, and I don't know if it's ever been answered, and perhaps you can answer it, Jared, is how we're going to be handling the private roads. Because there are some private roads that are within Phase 2 design area, as far as I remember, and they're just going to be handled like any other roads, aren't they?
yes, the only ones that got betterments the last time was if they were in a condo. But if the road serves single-family dwellings,
Yes.
it's handled like anybody else. So, there's no different costs, no different, other than there might be some easement paperwork or something like that we have to do, but nothing financially has changed for those people at all.
That's good to know, because that was one of the questions when people were out talking about the, before town meeting. There were some questions from people who lived on private roads and said, well, how are we gonna be handled? Is it
Yeah.
gonna be any different for us as opposed to people on public roads? Thank you.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, and then the next item on the agenda is a report or an update from our wastewater superintendent, Mr. Jared Meter.
So we have a lot that's been going on. As you can see, I'll just start out first in front of you. Everybody today got the rough draft of the commissioner's rules and regulations. It's more of not even a rules and regulations, it's more like an orientation packet. So when new members come on board, plus just reminders, like you haven't dealt with something for a while, and quick reference material for you when it comes to different CMRs, which basically outline us, town policies, how to run a meeting, points of order, things like that. So it's, it's already been through the town manager's office just to make sure that it's in good form, and they said yes. The only addition we put to it after going to his office is at the back in section 7, you'll see basically any town policy that might, you know, you might have to pay attention to at some point or another throughout your time here. And they wanted me to point out that the town policies will always supersede anything that's inside this book. So if you ever do find a conflict that might have been written, we didn't find any, but if you do, town policy trumps everything else. So just over the next month, if everybody can get a chance to review it, if there's any comments next meeting, I can take them all down, and then I'll recollect your books. We got new binders coming and everything like that, and I'll put everything in together and get rid of the draft writing that it says on it, and give everybody a copy of the final draft.
Thanks.
And also, there's a section in there, I forgot. You'll see where it says wastewater management forms, it's currently blank, as we're, over the next few months, getting ready to open up the plant and start implementing forms and procedures. Those items will be added in that section. And then section 8, which I left blank right now, is gonna be any type of individual policies we come up with. For example, in the flow neutral bylaw, there's a whole process that's laid out, it says in there, so if people want an extra room, what is that? I can't find any procedures. So I figured it would help to put those out, and then we can add those in the back of any specific policies that come out as we move along and develop the board when it starts getting the more active role the day the plan opens.
Yeah.
Yep, that's when everything transfers.
Is that something that will be coming up once people are attached to the collection system? That if they're on the collection system, that they can?
Yes, so there is some situations that we run into. I had one person approach me already, and they have a special needs child, and they're already at the max capacity for their rooms, technically for the according to the flow neutral bylaw for that size property. So they're gonna ask for a variance to add the extra room so that they can have an in-house health aide assist with this child. And to me, that was like, oh, that's one of those examples where there might need to be an exception. But how do we determine that? So that's where I figured, you know, what's going in the back of the book, there'll be a section where once we make a determination, what does qualify you for those breaks?
Exceptions, yeah.
Yep, those exceptions, and then it'll be laid out there instead of each time. What did we do last time? I like to keep things where we can reference and say, this is the policy. And people can look at it and go, should I ask or shouldn't I ask, you know? And so that'll probably be one of the first ones I tackle for this book, because it will be coming up soon.
That'd be good.
So then that would be a procedure that would be set up that people would need to follow the same way if they were, well, for anything new, where they would need a variance for whatever reason in connection with the sewer.
And I think that's the variances for that flow neutral, because the flow neutral bylaw kind of goes hand in hand with everything we're doing.
Yes.
So I think that's the one we should tackle first, because when we start doing those connections and people looking to do things, we need to have a process.
Policy, yeah.
The GIS we talked about a little bit earlier. So we do have, next week they're doing the flyover for the town. They're gonna do the whole town to a .1 resolution, which I don't really truly know what that means. I just know that it means it's really clear, really close. When you get on our computers, you can really see that. So that's happening next week. We're currently working on the rate study. We have a meeting next week. We're trying to determine how to do the billings. The scenario we're kind of going with right now is instead of doing water meter reads, because there's a substantial portion of the town that's not on town water. They're still on wells. Then there's multi-units connect to one meter. How do we break that down for billing? So we've looked at it, and we're a residential development. Not that there isn't a way to do commercial, but for the predominant, we might just figure out per bedroom, that'll be the rate. So I'm putting that together now with the Abrams Group, and GHD. We've had a couple meetings. We have another one coming up next week, or no, at the end of this week. And we're gonna put this all together. I think ultimately it's gonna make it easier when we do budgets each year, because we're just gonna say how much we need, and then how we break that down equally amongst rooms. And it should be a simple formula each year. And then I'm writing in the policy about how we're gonna do rate changes. That I found in my previous towns that instead of waiting till we needed a rate change, which then throws everybody into a panic, if you at least have a scheduled annual, like at the first of each year, the first meeting of January, We sit down and we discuss the rates. We know that's gonna be a public meeting. It doesn't create hysteria. It just creates, okay, we're talking about it again. And it might be resulting in nothing happening. We might decide no increase in budget, no increase in rates. And so, to normalize it, so that'll be written there as well. Yep.
Question. There are homes that have unfinished basements but have bathrooms in them, and those unfinished basements are still used as bedrooms. Is there a way that they can consider that?
So we have to go with what it's one of the reasons why I do this, assessors. Let me go back a little bit. So one of the hardest parts about flat rate billing, when you do like fixtures or anything like that, people build houses, they add bathrooms, they do things, and you never hear about it in the sewer department until you do an audit. Then what happens when you do the audit, usually every 10 or 15 years, because it's so hard to get into the homes, it takes a couple years because you gotta get permission and to go in, and then you find out you're missing thousands and thousands of opportunities to bill. With the bedroom count, it kind of goes in hand with the assessors, which means it gets already reviewed every so many years. We don't have to go out and do the review, and then all we have to do is just take that file and download it, and it parts it out for us by property, what they owe. Now, we will run into cases where there's illegal bedrooms and basements, things like that. Really, the only thing we can do is we can fine them if they're ever discovered, which they automatically do through the building department anyways. The town, we can also impose our own individual fine if we choose to, once that policy's written, however we want to do. I think we're allowed a maximum of $5,000 per day per charge, maximum.
Wow.
So, obviously, you kind of have a much lower scale. But yeah, I'll put that together at some point too. I've only had to do it once, and we never actually had to fine. It was just more, get this done by this deadline, and they complied at that point, and it was totally fine. Staffing plan is something I'm working on right now with the town manager. So the town was originally estimating that was only gonna need a 4-hour-a-day operator 5 days a week. Unfortunately, it's been discovered that due to the size of our plant and the capacity, we have to fall under CMR, and CMR says we have to go through this new EAPIC staffing plan, which says 3 operators. There's been some talks with GHD with the DEP, and the DEP says we follow the CMR. They have some wiggle room.
What's CMR?
This CMR is, let me just misquote it, was it 314?
It's a regulation.
Yep,
Oh,
yep, it's a
Yeah,
regulation.
CMR.
Yeah, sorry, CMR, Code of Massachusetts regulation.
okay.
So right now, following the CMR, our staffing plan would call for 3.2 employees. What we're gonna ask for is that since it's a brand-new plant, it is predominantly automated, that maybe one of those employees be part-time. And we'll do that when contract ops. But asking them that if we write in the contract, that if we put out for 4-hour operators, that it can be extended out to 8 hours. And that way, we kind of, the DEP sees that there is an insurance, just in case if we do need the operators.
If there's a need, yeah.
It's there. And then since every 2 years you do the review, if the plant truly does meet the automated expectations, then we can always forego extending the contract or put out another one. So we're just kind of reviewing it and making sure that everything is correct, because the DEP does look at doomsday scenario, and that was the first thing. It's like, well, you're built for this much. You might only expect to get this much, but what happens if?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that is what we always worry about, because Murphy's Law does kick in
Yeah, it
often.
does, yeah.
So we're ongoing with that. Other things we're working at is other contracts starting to put together, building the RFPs for individual things like sludge hauling and disposal, professional services, some things in there like, you know, an on-call electrician. I know the town has one, but I got to make sure that they're able to respond within an hour. And that would be for like plumbing, electric, excavation crew. What if we end up with a broken pipe underground? We got to be able to get the crews there fast. So just putting all that together now to get it out on the street. We already covered phase 2. So we already talked about that one. Talked about the flow neutral bylaw.
One of the
Last thing-
questions, oh,
Yep.
no, please finish.
I was gonna say, we're going to town meeting warrant articles. If you'd like to.
Yeah, the only other thing I meant to ask, when Sandy was presenting, and you probably are well aware of it, is when we would actually start the construction on Phase 2.
If all goes well with permits, this time next year.
Okay. Is there a general process? It's very similar to the first phase, isn't it? With getting permits first, I mean, getting the surveys first, then the permits. Do you mind responding to that?
That's fine, yeah.
Thank you.
The major permit that we're worried about, if you will, it's the riskiest. It's the one that we're very proactive with, is your groundwater discharge permit. We have to get your facility permitted to take additional flow in the ground. There's other permits that are just part of designing a collection system. Those are, we're already talking with DEP right now on the groundwater discharge permit, so that's underway. When it gets, this is a large project. It's called, the plant itself is vertical, but it's not really a building it might be now. So we might have to pre-qualify contractors for the plant. That's something that would take place in the fall. But the big deadline is in October. We have an SRF submittal. That's somewhere around 90% drawings, specs. The more you have done at this period, the smoother it goes. If you have easements in hand, permits in place, your contractors lined up, not your construction contractors, but usually it's easements and permits that can get us stalled. It did with Phase 1. And then we would put it on the street in January, February, March. The main thing is you have to be executed by June 30th of next year, meaning you have to go through the bid process. Just like Phase 1 right now is with the contractor, this one has to be executed by June 30th of this year. Once I get it back, and next week, I should be back to me next week, I can take a review, get it to Jared. It just depends on how long it takes the town to sign up. You're gonna make June 30th really easy.
All going well. If all goes well.
If all
goes
we're-
well. Yeah.
We're this close.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're just about there.
So we'll be optimistic, and we will expect it will all go well.
I expect it all to go well.
And we did meet with the DEP at the beginning of the week about the groundwater discharge permit, and we got some more direction on, like, the mounding that we used before was the big issue, is not so much an issue now. The DEP is getting more and more information out there about, now it's not just .1 in general. Now they're allowing a little bit more. It's, was it white cedar swamps and vernal pools are the two big concerns. Those two are the two big concerns, and other than that, there's definitely still an open conversation, so more and more hopeful now, so.
Interesting.
There are the environmental concerns that we do have to be concerned about. Okay, thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is to look at the articles that were passed, and we are very heartened by the fact that the town residents have supported the whole idea and the funding for the next step, and I thought it would be a good idea if we just kind of reiterate what those are so that people understand what it's all about. And so if we just go in order from the special meeting, the first article was the transfer of money, $1.4 million from the wastewater stabilization fund for temporary borrowing. And that allows the town to help with the planning, continue to, with Phase 2 planning and to avoid interest, because then we don't have to borrow money. So is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
That one, no, I mean, it was pretty straightforward. It was in
was.
it, we had the money, no reason to borrow it, and, pay the interest. Let's just get the bill out of the way, and since the money was there and available.
Yeah, I think that the way that the town manager and the town has handled the financing of this to lessen the obligations in terms of interest rates have been wonderful.
Yeah.
So the next one was a similar one. to appropriate and transfer the sum of $1,600,000 from the wastewater infrastructure investment fund, as people affectionately call the WIF fund, and the sum of $500,000 from revenue available for appropriation to also allow there to be the town to continue going forward with having the funding without having to worry about having to borrow additional money, so there's no interest that's going to be paid on that phase of the funding, which is the design of phase 2.
Yep.
Yeah. Was there anything else you'd like to
No,
add?
it was the same situation. Those first two were pretty cut and dry. It was just a financial move to avoid paying the interest.
Cindy, do you have anything to add? Okay, thank you, great. Then the next article was Article 6, and this was an interesting one because it allowed the town needed to vote to rescind the authority to borrow money, because we had, in the October meeting, had been authorized to borrow money in order to continue with the wastewater project, and we needed to rescind that article. So that was pretty straightforward as well.
Yep, that was the town manager wanted to make sure it was clear to people that we're pulling the money out of here, we're not gonna borrow the money here, and they wanted to make sure nobody would stay up and say, well, you still have this borrowing capacity, which we would have still had. So we wanted to make sure that everybody saw that we don't no longer have the borrowing capacity anymore.
Excellent, okay. So the next item, and this was the one that I guess we were all holding our breath about, was to see if the town would appropriate to vote to see if the town could appropriate the sum of $96,100,000 to fund the implementation and construction of Phase 2. And the explanation is that the article provided funding to implement and construct Phase 2 of the town's comprehensive wastewater management, treatment, and disposal improvement plan, which included the expansion of the wastewater recovery facility. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, it was, I was actually when I was at the meeting, I was surprised. The only question I really had to answer to was just, are we gonna continue and test and monitor for the future?
Yeah.
And to me, that was very positive. It just shows that everybody's still committed to the direction that we're going. And, yes, I think they understand that it is a sum of money, but I think through the multiple, groups in the community that go out and on our behalf and speak about things, and people that have come to me, I've had a lot of people just, I'm in the town hall, I was stopping to see what wastewater has to say, and they ask their questions, and, I think the word is getting out. I think it was very clear, and I think it was overwhelmingly approved when the vote happened. And
yeah.
even the paper vote was overwhelmingly approval, so, no, it's very positive.
It is. It's very exciting that the information that people are getting through the website, through word of mouth, through conversations, through your office, and answering questions as they come up has been very, very, very positive. So as we move forward, and we know we continue to evaluate where we're going and what we're doing, and that's fantastic. So the next article was for the town to continue participation in the Community Septic Management Program and the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust to make loans to residents of the town for repairing and/or upgrading residential septic systems pursuant to agreements between the Board of Health and the property owners. So do you want to add anything to that?
That's a Board of Health article, but it's, basically there is money that the town has through the SR program that homeowners can have when their septics fail, to get a low-interest loan from the town. It's through SRF. There's a limited amount of money. It can also be used, people can apply to have their sewer connections done. So they can, if they want to try to go that route for a low-interest loan. But it's only a limited pot of money.
Exactly.
So I know that going in the future, from talks I've had with the Board of Health, they predominantly want to try to use it for septic repairs for people that aren't in the sewer area that might need an IA upgrade and things like that. But that was their article for that.
And so it was passed again unanimously, which is great. And the last article that pertained to the to the wastewater management was to, oh, there were two more.
Two more, yeah.
One was to fund a position for a person to be the assistant, to be an assistant to you.
Yes. So we did decide to do an executive assistant. This person's gonna basically be my right hand. They're gonna do the billing, collect payments, help with keeping reports, preparing for these type of meetings, tracking all the construction we have going on, help me track all that. And just basically generally be somebody that'd answer the phone. Right now, we're using Karen, who technically is hired as the planning board, but also does
Part-time.
part-time with
the
us, and she
wastewater.
does so much. And it's like I feel bad whenever I'm like, Karen, do you got a minute? You know, so this'll, you know, whoever takes this position, you know, they're gonna be either Karen or the new Karen.
But
So-
but your responsibilities are hindered as well without having a full-time person working with you in order to allow you to get the work done that needs to get done. So it was, again, wonderful that it was overwhelmingly supported. Are there
Yes.
any other comments by the commissioners? No? So do you know where we are with the hiring process on that?
So I actually, last week, or week before last, met with HR. We're finalizing the job description. The town manager is very supportive of this, so he's gonna allow us to post it before July 1st. So that way, we can get the whole hiring process done by July 1st and have this person come in the door from day one. So we're finalizing it all right now.
That's excellent to know.
Yep.
And it'll be open to anyone to apply for it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the last one was Article 26, was that the question was asked about accepting provisions. I'm not going to go through the legalese but the Massachusetts general laws to establish the Department of Wastewater Management as an enterprise fund effective fiscal year 2026. And the explanation was that the enterprise fund will authorize the department to operate a public utility as a self-sufficient, self-funded operation at the Water Resource Recovery Facility. Could you explain a little bit more about the enterprise fund? Because I know this is something that you've been very, very interested in from the time you'd come on board.
So the enterprise fund is nothing more than an accounting method for the municipality to use. As we know, we're normally not in the business of making money. We're not a private entity, but in this case, we are allowed to make money. So we operate a lot like a private business within the town. And this is what gives us the authorization. So our money ends up being kept separate from the rest of the town money. Anything we generate, we keep in-house. The other side of it, though, is if we lose money, if we don't make enough money each year, the town is then obligated to subsidize us. So in the beginning, the intent is we're gonna subsidize the users in the beginning, just because there's so few of them, the operating costs are gonna be so high. But then as we go forward, that subsidy will drop off, and then it will be a self-sustaining unit within the town. Normally what we'll do is we'll pick our capital projects, so we'll have our operating budget, and then we'll figure out what our capital projects that are coming up in the future, and then what we try to do is build our budget to build what they call retained earnings each year, and goes to there. We also have to provide an in-kind services with the town, so we'll pay a certain percentage of the town managers, basically everybody in the town's, department's salaries. There'll be a percentage, usually like 5% is the common one used. We cover our own benefits, our own salaries, all through this. So it does actually take a lot of the load that, my position will be freed up, that could make 2 more DPW people by moving my salary over to that direction. We set it up for starting not this fiscal year, but the following fiscal year, and the reason being is we wanted to get as many people tied in first, see what our flows are like, see what that revenue stream is, and then actually take the time to build this properly, instead of trying to rush and meet a deadline. And so the finance director and I said, well, we can write this for another year out, and that's what we did. And that way, we knew we have the approval now, and now we can just start doing the work to build ourselves in that direction. But it's not like a district. We can't impose a tax. We can't do this, but it does also, as commissioners, it separates you. Like, you're gonna handle the budget, you're gonna approve the budget. Well, I'll put it together for you, you're gonna approve it.
Maybe.
Yes, ideally, hopefully. So that is, It's those little nuances. I mean, I'll still go in front of FinCom, give FinCom a chance to look at it. It's always better to have as many people as you can look at budgets, you know, and try to identify mistakes, and then, but ultimately, it'll be the commissioner's approval of the budget each year.
So any of the fees that are coming through from the connections would be going into this enterprise fund until eventually that becomes self-supporting?
It all stay in there, and it works good when you have enough customers.
How does it relate to the water department?
So the water department's
Water
a district,
yeah.
so they're in essence separate from the town. They have to hold their own town meetings, they establish their own taxes, they have to put out their own town reports. They're basically its own town within the town. They just hold the same name. We don't have that, you know, separation, but the commissioners can sign loans, you know, can draw money, can purchase lands, things like that, all through the enterprise fund. So we're kind of like the district, but we still fall under the town. The town manager still is the ultimate authority over staffing and personnel issues. Select board does still manage overall town policy, but the commissioners deal with specifically the pool of money that is generated in the policies that go with that under Chapter 83.
That's great to hear. It
Yes.
sounds like what do you think is the best benefit from it?
The best benefit is that I don't want to sound like it's like you agree, but it gives us flexibility. Like when we need equipment, every department, if we need a staff member, I'll start with staff members. You're competing against the rest of the town for staff. And that can get tricky. I mean, everybody feels their job is the most important, where we can generate our revenues. And like a business, we can determine, yes, we made enough money, or no, we don't make enough money, and we don't want to raise rates, and we have to deal with what we have for staff. So it gives us that flexibility. If we need vehicles or equipment, heavy equipment, then we sit there and say, okay, this year, you know, we're going to make sure we have a retained earnings, or what we call a budgeted surplus, for X amount of dollars. The difference, unlike a private business, though, is I have to justify to the DOR anything above 20% increase. And that's only what we call the retained earnings, which is we said we're gonna make this much, more came in. If you get more than 20%, they go, hey, you're overcharging people. And they make us evaluate our rates. But vice versa, if we make under 20% and the town has to cover it, then they say, okay, why aren't you making enough money? We're having you changed. So we do have that extra auditing, you know, over us. And we also get separately audited from the rest of the town, which I do think is an advantage. I'm very big on the, you know, transparency and money. Instead of like saying in the in-kind services, we'll hide like the town sewer bill. Nope, I'll send you a sewer bill. Please send me a water bill. And even though the money changes back and forth, anybody could pick up the paper and go, all right, I see the money went here and I saw the money went here.
It's clear, yeah,
Very clear.
excellent. Are there any other comments, questions from the other commissioners? Excellent. Well, we've covered the items on our agenda. Are there any other issues that anyone would like to raise?
I was just gonna mention, if anybody's interested, the Coastal Conference is June 18th in Hyannis.
What coastal conference? Could you tell us a bit more about it, please?
Okay, I was wondering if you knew about it. I wanted to go last year and I was out of town, but it's Waquat Bay National Estuarine Research Coastal Training. It's open to commissioners and town personnel, and they're going to focus on it's called Collaborating for Solutions, Practical Sessions to Achieve Watershed Plans.
When is it going to be?
June 18th, but you have to sign up by register by June 13th. They're going to have case studies, traditional and alternative methods for reducing nitrogen and improving water quality. So that's the focus.
So how would one be in touch with them to register?
I can distribute this if anybody's interested in.
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. Great. Yeah, I think we should.
I think that's great to know.
We're in the front of the pack, I think, with a good example of what we're doing, and I think it would be interesting to participate. So it looks like almost an all-day thing. So FYI, it's free. So.
Okay.
And where is it in Hyannis?
It's going to be at the Emerald Resort and Conference Center. Big deal. So, The target or audience is local officials, municipal staff, boards and committees, tribal staff and leaders, environmental organizations, scientists, water quality managers, conservation commissioners, and consultants. Everybody in this room applies.
Okay.
So, I'll
So
send,
it's June 18th, and
Yeah.
it's called the Coastal what?
it's called the 2024 Cape Coastal Conference. I'll forward this to everybody.
Okay.
It's just one day?
One day. Mhm.
And I'd just like to put in a word for Susan Donovan, and she does a diligent job in trying to keep us on target and on
Yeah.
track.
She does.
But when she sends out the agenda, can you please at least send her back a response to say,
Sure.
yes, I got it, and no, I have no other additional
Well,
items?
that's not the issue, but you guys can certainly respond, but I sent out an email to you, 3 actually, did you get any of them?
I probably did.
Meredith, who was out of the country, and Chad asking for agenda items and never got a response from anybody.
Oh,
And I had to
Weird.
keep going in, signing in to check my emails. My time is money, so I ended up charging the town an hour's worth of work for nothing because I never got any responses.
sorry. I was at.
It's not your fault, because I reach out to, the vice chair, and she was out,
The chair.
and Chad and Jared.
Okay.
But it's imperative that I get, I said, are there any items that, other than the regulars that we have continuously running on the agenda? And I never got a response.
But you know what would be helpful as well is if you let us know by when you need to have a response from us. Because that way we can target it to be sure that we get the information to you by the time you need it.
Right. And it's tough to remember now since the times changed,
Yes.
because now I have to have it by end of business Thursday.
Okay.
And it's a good thing it pops into my head Thursday morning, because I don't think really don't think about it before then.
Okay.
Because I do work with five total.
Do you send it to Karen as well?
I don't know.
If you can always CC Karen,
Okay.
if that just help me out.
Yeah. anything
Because then I
ensure
start to
a response.
wonder,
Who
oh
got
my
it and who's
God,
paying
is
it?
there some, because the email platform is not very stable. So I start to wonder if anybody's even getting them.
Right.
So if there isn't any items that need to be added, just say so. And then I also did a red receipt, and I never got anything back from that. Then I started getting really worried, so I had to text Meredith, who was traveling from overseas.
Okay.
But
That's all.
we can work out our glitches so that we're all kind
Yeah.
of working together, because there's no reason or there's no need for there to be angst in trying to get the meetings going and moving forward.
Right.
So,
Because
thank you.
where I didn't hear back from anyone, I just submitted one with the running items. But if I didn't do that, there wouldn't be a meeting, because I never heard from anybody.
Right, there wouldn't have been one.
Good to know.
Yep. But thank you very much for all you do.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for your presentation,
Yes?
and thank you for yours. So may I
I
entertain?
just have
Yes.
one question.
Yes.
We're all excited about Phase 2 and how it's been funded and we're moving along. When do we start talking about Phase 3 and starting to develop that?
Next week? I think it's the first meeting.
Hear this. Actually, we're already, because Phase 3 feeds into Phase 2 infrastructure, we're making sure we're thinking ahead to make sure that we don't move forward on something and already outdate our, Phase 2 facilities. So, we're incorporating Phase 3 into our Phase 2 design. But first, you gotta get the notice of project change done.
Yeah, I had an hour and a half long conversation today with Anastasia, going over Phase 3, areas to look at, and just kind of the, as she likes to, I love her term, the back of the envelope type planning. We're just kind of, she's got to get the permit done, but we did have one of those conversations, in fact, today, and I think next week we're going to have a more formal
That's good. I actually had a question on that Saturday, I think, from somebody, so.
Well, that's what blew my mind with the
Yeah.
phase two. I stopped getting worried when it was like 2 days before the meeting and people were walking my door and I was no longer getting the phase two questions. It was like, all right, so what are we doing for phase three? And I'm like, we've already moved on. I guess this is a good sign. You know, so.
People are very excited about moving forward.
Yes, it's, that's been probably the most refreshing thing about this town is how motivated everybody is with wastewater. And in my field, it's like, usually we're not the ones people talk about until something bad happens or it's gonna cost a lot of money. And everything here has been like, you know, people are interested, but it's usually ideas or suggestions or just questions in general. And it's been very positive.
Excellent. Thank you for your question.
And hearing no more, I'd like to move we adjourn.
Seconded.
Okay, and all in favor? Excellent. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
1 hour, it's amazing.